Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Root Select podcast. My name is Brick. I'm the developer of Silverstone, and I've helped work on Cleaved. Today's guest is LeoMyFriend. Hello.
Hello. My name is Leo. How you doing?
I am doing very good. I hope you're doing good as well.
I'm doing great.
Would you like to tell everyone what you have worked on?
For sure. So the only project to my name, at least in the visual novel world right now, is Undefeated. I was the writer, producer, I guess programmer. I don't really know if I can call myself that. I put this stuff in RenPy and I made it work. So
If it works, it works.
if it works, exactly. That's the majority of the work, I would say. I've done a bit of proofreading here and there, but for the most part, it's just been Undefeated.
That's awesome. What if you proofread, actually?
I did a bit of proofreading for Yama Wolf. He put out the Alpha Underground a few months ago. I think it's just the first chapter of that. And then I also have to ask for permission on this later to see if I'm allowed to talk about it. I proofread the what is it called? The Land of Gron, I think is what it's called.
Oh, nice.
It hasn't come out yet, but there's a whole account for it. So I'm excited for that to come out.
Hell yeah, man. So before we get into the whole, furry visual novel development aspect of things, we're going to do a small icebreaker. So obviously you're a streamer, you stream on Twitch and everything like that. You've probably played a lot of games that have furries in them. So
I've played a good number of them, yeah, I'd say.
So I'm going to ask you, what is who is currently your big furry crush?
Oh God. Oh geez. That's so hard because there's so many.
Yeah, I have two in mind right now because I went to your Twitch page earlier and saw what games you were playing.
Oh God. Well, if we're going off of the games that I've been playing on Twitch, I would have to say it's hard to call it a tie, but Walika from Final Fantasy 14, he's in the new expansion, or Kimari from Final Fantasy 10. Both very, very good lads.
Yeah.
I don't know if Halsin counts from Baldur's Gate 3. I don't know if he counts. He turns into a real life bear. That feels like cheating.
Yeah, those were two I was caught between, was Kimari and Halsin, but I was like, Halsin's technically a druid that uses the animal shape.
Yeah, but at the same time, we do count like werewolves in the furry space, right? So like maybe it counts.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe there's a difference between turning into one involuntarily or not. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a conversation for a different time.
For sure, for sure.
First off, it has been a year, actually more than a year, I think, since Undefeated finished. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I wanted to go over a bit of stuff about that. Like, we live in a space where people are constantly creating. Like, we have so many visual novels that are currently unfinished. Good one that comes to mind is EXAC, Extracurricular Activities. That's been going on for, I think, over 10 years at this point.
Over a decade, yeah.
And you're one of the few in the space that actually has a finished visual novel. So I want to go over what that sort of aspect has been like, because we have so many people going, oh, I want to read visual novels that are finished. And of course, there's a very small margin of that.
Slim pickings for that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a really interesting, even just like the year after finishing it has been really interesting. But I mean, the concept of having a finished visual novel is also, I don't know if novelty is the right word because there's a lot of them out there. But the number of unfinished ones just outrank it entirely. But I think it feels like a big accomplishment to be able to say that I've finished one, but at the same time I compare it to the ones that are in progress, like Smoke Room, Killigan's Treasure, Extracurricular Activities, all these ones that have been going on for 5-6+ years, and it's like those are massive in scale. Those are exponentially larger than the one that I worked on. So it's I don't know, it's really interesting because it's a different kind of achievement. We've probably written the same amount of words, we've probably created the same amount of novel, but my story just happened to have a shorter start and stop point. So it feels like a big accomplishment, but at the same time I look at those bigger projects and I'm like, man, that's a big accomplishment just to be able to work on something for that long. So it's cool. It's really cool.
100%. And one thing I did notice is that compared to the ones you listed, like the Smoke Room and EXAC, yours is also a linear novel as opposed to a non-linear one where you can go after whoever you choose. Like in EXAC, go after Spencer if you want to, or something like that.
For sure, for sure. I my go-to answer is just to say, "Oh, I was lazy," but there might be a little bit more to it than that. So for I guess a little bit of background, Undefeated wasn't actually my first choice for a visual novel. I had another idea floating around that was, I guess at the time, more akin to something like Morenatsu, because that was the
Oh,
only one I had read at the point, where it was going to be a set amount of days where you have like a set amount of routes that you can go on, and it would have like a point system, sort of like Persona, where if you get enough relationship points with X person, then they'll invite you onto their route, so on and so forth. And after working on that for 6, 7 months, I was like, Jesus Christ, this is a lot. This is a lot of work. I
yeah.
just need, I said, I just need something small to like cut my teeth on to figure this out, and then I'll jump on this big project. And then, Undefeated happened, and that took only 3 years. So small may not have been the right choice for that. But I think the Roots was one of the things that I cut very early on, just because it was like, that's a lot of work, and I want to keep this project small and contained for the time being.
Was there going to be roots in Undefeated, like going after Red Line or Bruce or something like that?
Yep, those were the two options, were either going with Redline or going with Bruce, and it would change the ending like moderately depending on like who you went with, but the overall ending wouldn't, like the main story beats wouldn't have changed too much. It just would have been a little bit extra here and there, and I thought like,
Hmm.
well, that's not really the point of playing these things, you know? Like when people go on routes, they want it to be usually like an entirely separate story. Like if you look at any visual novel with a route, it's you're going off on your own adventure with that character. And I thought, if I'm not gonna like commit everything to this, then there's no point in me including a route. It's just gonna muddy the water. It's gonna muddle things up. So I'm just gonna combine everything into one cohesive story, one linear story.
Yeah, I think that was the right move because if you look at, say, for example, Echo, Carl's route is completely different from, say, Flynn's. Like,
Yep.
that's what a lot of people go after. Whereas I think if there wasn't a lot of change, that is definitely just, oh, it's in there just to be in there. So I think merging those two together is definitely the best choice you could have gone with.
I agree. There wasn't maybe this is a failing on my own writing. I feel like there wasn't enough by the point in the story when we would have encountered a route. The novel's already like probably 60% done, which feels kind of late for that.
Oh,
And at the same time, a lot of the character development is about to happen already. So it just made sense to keep it the way it was.
yeah, I would say for sure you definitely want to have the root split early. Like,
Much, much earlier.
I would say my novel, Silverstone, is estimated to be at least 5 times longer than Undefeated,
Oh
but
yeah.
I would say mine still happens pretty late for a novel that size. It happens about, I want to say, 26K words in.
Oh, really? Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
that's still pretty early. I mean, Undefeated came out to 144,000, so that's like 1/6 of the way through Undefeated. That's not too late. I think that sounded
Yeah.
pretty good. I mean,
Yeah.
it's been a minute since I read Echo, and I know the root split for that. Even though it does happen on like day 3, I think. But
I believe it's day 3, yeah.
yeah, it's still there's still a good chunk of novel before that. Even with like Password, there's still 3 or 4 days or something like that before you get the root split.
That one I can't comment on. I have yet to read Password.
Mm.
If I get Grizz on for an episode, that is definitely something we'll be talking about.
It's
Is
it's a
Password?
it's a big novel.
Yeah,
It's a big one. He really worked on that one.
yeah. I'm actually waiting for the rewrite for that. I want to see what that's going to be like as well.
Oh, right, right, right. Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, and also it also depends on genre, and that is something I want to talk about with Undefeated. Is we have like a lot of horror novels, sci-fi novels in the space. We kind of have a small fantasy space as well, but that's still relatively small. But you're in a genre that is not really touched upon, which is the fighting genre. Yours is like MMA, and the only
Right.
other like huge sports novel where that's a major aspect that I can think of is Claw Star Wrestling. Like even Tennis
Mm.
Ace is more slice of life in a way.
Yeah. This is another part where I'm like, this happened more early on in the planning of Undefeated, where I was like, I planned everything out. I got all the story beats. I made a big outline. And I said, okay, what genre is this? I can't I can't really describe, because it's not really sports. It's kind of, I guess, romance, but you don't really get there until the end. It's not, I guess, kind of drama too. I don't know. It's really tough to like categorize it into a genre, which might well, not might.
Yeah.
It's definitely something I would need to work on in the future. But yeah, Clawstar I think is the only major one. Bullrock is Is Bull Rock a name that you recognize at all? That was a visual novel
No,
for a
I
while.
actually don't
It
believe.
was I think it was a professional wrestling one. This was something I was reading about on Tumblr probably in like 2015 or something. Like it was a long time ago. I don't know how much of it came to fruition, but that might be another one in a similar space. I think it's just pro wrestling though, not MMA. But at the same time, I think fighting combat sports in general doesn't really get touched on too much, and it doesn't really need to be. It's a pretty niche interest for people in the first place.
Mm,
So it might just be like a side thing. A fight scene in any visual novel is probably going to happen here or there. I know Adastra has quite a few. I'm trying to think of any other visual novel I've read. In Gilligan's Treasure, the fight scenes are fight gameplay. So we
yeah.
know.
Like,
um,
what I'm thinking of is the furry space. If people see like wrestling art or something of that kind, they go for that shit because
mhm.
it's usually done in a very provocative way.
Yeah.
Which, like, I'm not judging that. I like that stuff.
Pro,
um,
pro wrestling itself is very homoerotic. I'm sorry to any potentially straight wrestling fans out there. It's
yeah.
it's gay.
Yeah, it's just when you talk about that, I'm wondering if that balance between the fighting side of the game and more slower slice of life drama-esque part, if that's why people don't really touch upon that in VNs, because they don't know how to find that balance or they don't want to find that balance even.
Yeah, I think at least with the structure of Undefeated, I use them to like chop it up into like arcs, I guess is the or acts might be a better word for it. Where it's
Yeah,
like okay, the fight scene and all the ensuing progress after. Maybe a checkpoint is another good word where it's like okay, now we're checking back in because every so often, especially in an MMA setting, there's going to be like if we're thinking about it in movie terms, there's going to be a fight scene, right?
yeah.
And not every visual novel necessarily calls for a fight scene. If you look at something like oh God, what are any visual novels that I've read recently? Oh, why am I blanking all of a sudden? Oh no.
I think I might have a good example, Socially Awkward. That doesn't have like any fight scenes whatsoever.
Yeah, and I don't think you really need those in those sorts of things, right? So I
Yeah,
think it kind of depends on the setting, it depends on the storyline, it depends on the characters that you're trying to go for. It makes sense in things like Adastra because at the start Marco fights with Amicus, he doesn't want to be on there. Amicus has to train, so he fights with Kato, that sort of thing. I think there's a few in Password. It's been a long minute since I've read that. So it really just depends on the scene and not I would say more often than not, you're not gonna need it in a visual novel or in a story just because it requires a certain subset of characters, it requires a certain set of like circumstances for the characters to be in. They have to be really desperate for something like that to happen.
yeah.
Usually if a fight's breaking out, it's usually over something pretty tense. So
Yeah, one thing I definitely learned with Silverstone is writing arguments is extremely hard.
it really is.
Because the thing is, like, even though the subject matter in my fight is very serious, it's very hard to make it sound serious, if that
Mm.
sort of explains it, because you can very easily just go overboard with your fighting.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I don't know. I'm not familiar with the setting of Silverstone, but if you have weapons at your advantage, that changes every single aspect of it.
100%, yeah. Especially, like, if you have, like, swords or guns that you can just easily whip out, that can flip the tables.
Absolutely, and that kind of thing can also lead to a little bit of creativity with how you're working with it. Like
Mm,
the fight scene at the start of Adastro. I don't know if you can really call it a fight scene necessarily. Marco tries to escape basically, but like it would change entirely depending on if Marco had access to a gun or a sword. But I think he just has like a taser is like the only thing, and of course
yeah.
that limits what you can do with the interaction between the characters. But or even in Password, where all the characters have like their own weapon with what they're scrounging with. They like scrounge around the mansion to like find a weapon at some point, and everyone has their own thing where it's like they whatever they're comfortable using as a makeshift weapon. So I don't know, it's interesting including fights in stories like this.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I'm dreading getting to like physical fights because I'm like, oh boy, if writing verbal arguments is hard, oh, what's it gonna be like writing stuff like that?
Well, you may be in luck because there's usually a lot less dialogue in combat. I play with it like anime rules a little bit. Like if you look at something like Dragon Ball Z or My Hero Academia or any anime really where I had to quiet my voice on Any anime where characters are fighting, there's usually like a stopping point where like they take time to like quiet themselves and like focus, and they have a little bit of dialogue back and forth. In a real
Yeah.
fight in real life, that's not going to happen. You're not going to stop the fight to chit chat with your opponent. You're just going to throw hands for like 2 minutes and then exhaust yourself.
Yeah, so some brick lore, very quick. I actually was in a fight in high school once,
Oh
and
God.
oh my god, high school fights are so dumb.
From what I remember, it's a lot of like hair grabbing.
It's very extremely like that. Yeah, like you might come out with some bruises, but it's if you watch a film and see a fight, it never escalates to that level.
Oh yeah,
Or,
no.
well,
I mean, fight choreography is a whole other world as well. But yeah, no, I get you. In a real scrap, in a real like sudden moment brawl, all like technique goes out the window. There's no choreography. There's nothing
yeah.
organized about it. It's just two people desperately trying to solve a problem.
Yeah, it's just very wild. Like there's
Yeah,
no focus whatsoever.
it's very messy.
Yeah. So that I cannot think of a segue. That was fun.
That's fine. You do an ad break or something.
Yeah, here we go. Ad break, if I ever get those. Actually, that's a good segue, I guess, because you are also a streamer, and
I am.
you streamed while making Undefeated, correct?
Actually, I didn't.
Oh,
Well, I did for a little bit. Way back when I started writing the visual novel in, oh God, March 2021, I think. I think I was streaming while I was working on it, but after I want to say like a month of doing both streaming and writing, I was like, this is too much. I can't handle this. I have too much going on in my life right now. So I put streaming on a hiatus until I think like 2 weeks after the visual novel came out. I think Undefeated finished, and I was like, all right, well, what do I do with my spare time now? Oh, right, Twitch. And then I just hopped back on as if
yeah.
nothing happened.
Yeah, like programming visual novels is a very interesting lifestyle because I believe before you start the program, you think, oh, I can balance things out pretty easily. I can do a bit of programming here and there, a bit of writing here and there, and then I can go do whatever. I can go to the card shop. I can play games on Twitch and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
it's much more time consuming than people realize.
There's a lot of, it's just you never really know until you start doing it, right? Like
Yeah.
when I first started it, I was like, okay, I can just like pop in here and there. I'll open up the Google Doc every now and then I stopped writing in the Google Doc, which is Jesus Christ. But every now and then I was like, okay, I can just chip in a little bit here and there. But I have ADHD, so I need to sit down and hard focus on something, or I'm never going to get it done.
Yeah.
I can't just drop little pieces in here or there. So with something like this, it really is just all or nothing. You know, I have to throw away all my free time for this. Well, not all of it, obviously, but you know, enough of my free time to make a difference every night.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a big commitment for sure.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of fans don't really realize that. I'm not knocking on fans, of course, because they don't have the full intel about this kind of stuff. But even the people that are only doing stuff like this part time, it's like they're usually also at a job before the programming because it's also a very expensive venture as well.
I mean, there's a lot of, well, maybe not a lot. There are enough bigger groups in the furry VN space, and maybe the VN space in total or in general. I don't I don't know a whole lot about visual novels outside of that, or outside of the furry visual novel space. But there's enough that do this as like their job that if you don't know any better, you would assume that this is like the output that other smaller visual novels should have. But no, I would say majority of the people that work on these are, you know, at a 9 to 5 before this, or I mean, maybe they're not so lucky to even have a 9 to 5 and they're working, you know, a shift at a restaurant or something before this. You know,
Yeah.
it's tough out there. It really is just a big commitment. You have to, you're working all day, you get off work, and then immediately you start job number 2 that doesn't pay as much and is also about to be publicly scrutinized.
Yeah, for sure. And that's not even accounting things like ADHD and autism, where attention spans can be very easily cut short. Like that's one reason I have a lot of trouble writing Silverstone is I have like these massive docs that have this like a great amount of detail in them. And then I get to the writing and I'm like, I know what I want to put down, but I really don't want to write it right now.
Now I have to actually do the thing. Damn.
Yeah.
It's daunting for sure. It really is just you have to chip away at it, and however long it takes is however long it takes.
Yeah, that's definitely something you have to think about. And you also have to put the criticism you're going to get in the back of your mind as well. At least the destructive criticism in the back of your
Yep.
mind. Because if you focus too much on that and not what people who actually want to help improve your novel are saying, then you're going to get stuck in this eternal loop of my work is never good enough, or I have to continuously edit. And that just elongates the workload.
It makes it much harder to do the job that we want to do, right? It just
Yeah.
having that nagging voice in our head, always chattering away about feedback that doesn't necessarily matter. There's, everybody's a critic,
Yeah.
and it's what a really good skill to be able to ascertain is like being able to look at a piece of feedback and tell whether or not this is constructive or whether or not this is, I don't know a better word to say, stupid, but like there's definitely some feedback out there, and I looked at it, I'm like, no, absolutely not. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, there's definitely feedback I've seen like that as well. And sometimes I am definitely like, okay, I think these people do want to help, but
Mhm.
it doesn't necessarily align with what I'm doing or where I'm going, sort of.
Yeah. I think if somebody really has like the story's best interest at heart, if it has the project's best interest at heart, they're going to be able to say it in a way that when you as a creator read it, you're gonna be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Like it's gonna click,
Yeah, and I do talk with other furry devs, but I'm not on, like the furry visual novel Discord. But listening to other devs can either be a great help or a great detriment.
Yeah, absolutely.
The best advice I think I can give is to listen to your own head. Like,
Mhm.
I think the only criticism so far that I've implemented that was from other devs was about its readability. I remember the Moonlight Castle devs. I don't remember specifically which member of the team it was, but they did a small review of Silverstone on Itch, and one of their things was basically, oh, the choices are all caps, and it looks a bit silly. I was like, what? No, it doesn't. And then I actually went back and I was like, they might have a point.
Yeah. Once somebody points something out and you can actually see it, that it's like, ah, damn.
Yeah.
They got me.
If it's something like, oh, this sequence was really long and I don't know where the story's going, then it's like, well, my story's a slow burn.
Mhm.
So
For
it's
sure.
it's like maybe you should read a little more past that, and then you might get more information on it.
It's tough when we're working with something in a format in the way that we do, because I assume Silverstone does the same thing that other visual novels do, where they release like chunks every so often,
Yeah.
yeah, and releasing a slow burn in this method is unfortunately like I can understand the difficulty that readers would have with it, but at the same time, it's like, just be patient. I'm not done with the novel. There's going to be more coming. Please,
Yeah.
please just hang on.
It's like, hey, I do have more, but money, time, I don't
Yep.
have a lot.
Money, time, energy, ability, it all comes into play, unfortunately. So, and if you're putting out, a free project for people to enjoy, I think they can wait. They can wait as long as it needs.
Yeah, like, of course, patrons, that's a whole other story, but
That's why I didn't touch Patreon.
yeah, the free readers, it's like that you can be a bit more lax with patrons. It's like, okay, I have to constantly update.
I'm contractually obligated to give you my update, and I'm
Yeah.
I'm very sorry. Bows my head solemnly.
Yeah, it's usually like earlier today I actually did post where it's like, okay, I think I need to make more blog updates on Patreon.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always very, very happy whenever a dev is just like transparent and consistently keeping people updated on what's going on. So I think that can always be appreciated. I don't think there's a reader or a gamer out there that is like, ugh, why is the dev posting more about why this or that? Like, people like that kind of stuff. So definitely approve of that.
Yeah, for sure. Like, if you are listening and you are a developer that plans to make a Patreon or Subscribe Star, being transparent is the number one thing you can do there. But speaking of things that are slow to come out or slow to happen, earlier today on your Blue Sky,
Oh God.
yeah, I saw that you tweeted, quote, I decided to finish BG3 off stream. I'm going to start my playthrough of Morenatsu on Monday. Thanks for understanding.
I don't even know if Twitch would allow Morenatsu to enter their to the website.
Yeah, I was like, wait, doesn't that have sex scenes?
I mean, it does, but at the same, people have streamed horny visual novels and just like turned off the visuals when the sex scenes come on. Or there's
That
other
is
visual
true.
novels that have. I mean, Morenatsu is an old visual novel, so I'm not gonna I'm not gonna be able to disable those. Although I think somebody like upported it to Renpai. Maybe they added something there. I don't know.
There's a couple different versions, more not too out. I think there's Homecoming, which is the one most people read, and then I
Yep.
think Revisited came out recently.
Oh, okay. I've only ever read the OG, so I have not touched any of the like I guess sequels, remakes, remaster. I don't know what to call them.
It's kind of difficult to describe Homecoming. Revisited, I believe, is just a straight English port.
Oh, okay.
Whereas Homecoming, it's pretty much a fan remake where it does change some stuff. Like in the original Morenatsu, the protagonist is a human, and in Homecoming, I believe he's an Arctic wolf, if I remember correctly.
Oh, cute.
Yeah. A lot of people like that, a lot of people don't.
Yeah, I can, I can understand not wanting him to be a human. A lot of the friends that I talk with are like, I love reading X visual novel or Y visual novel, but why is the protagonist a human? And
Yeah.
I can understand that, but at the same time, like, I don't know, if I'm the protagonist, I'm not super concerned with what my species is.
Yeah.
So,
I
you know,
I definitely prefer having my character be an animal, but if it's a human, that's not a deal breaker for me. Like,
yeah.
one of my favorite VNs right now is Remember the Flowers. That has a human protagonist in it.
I think they have the long hair, and there's Cooper, the dog, and
Yeah.
Axel, the tiger, and those are the three names from Remember the Flowers I know. I'm sorry, I have not read any visual novels.
I mean, that's fine. But yeah, Morenatsu, I don't know if there's a safer work version currently.
I'm sure if I ever were to, I mean, for some reason read Morenatsu on stream, I would probably go into the game files first and find anything, racy and like cover up bits here and there in the PNGs, and it should be fine. No, I do tend to use Morenatsu as kind of like a punchline as jokes, and I part of me is like, is that disrespectful? Because it did kind of pioneer the genre for furries, but at the same time, it's old. It was started
Yeah.
what in 2004 or something like that. It's unfinished. It's I guess we could call it abandonware, the original one. So I feel like it's not. I'm respecting it in that I think it's relevant enough to keep bringing up.
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
Tatsuki's Root did make me cry though. I was a little blubbery baby bitch about that. Tatsuki's Root is very good.
Yeah. I can completely understand doing BG3 off stream though. Like,
I everyone warned me so right now I am streaming Baldur's Gate 3. I'm a little bit into Act 2. This is my first time playing it, so I don't know anything about it. But I remember what I told people. I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to start streaming Baldur's Gate 3." Everyone was like, "Oh, well, I guess we'll be playing this until 2027," which I thought was a joke, but man, at this rate it kind of is chugging along a little bit. But no, I am determined to finish it on stream just because I don't know what I would swap to after it's done.
yeah, there's just so much content in that game. And
So much.
from a streamer perspective as well, you have to do a lot of thinking in Baldur's Gate 3, which
Yeah.
isn't necessarily the best for interacting with chat.
It's not my strong suit either, having to think. So there was there's a scene early on where there's a gnome, I think, or a dwarf, not a gnome, a dwarf tied to a windmill blade.
Yeah.
And he's getting spun around like crazy, and they're like little goblins torturing him. And so obviously you can like kill the goblins and like set the dwarf free, or you can actually, what I did was talk the goblins down. And then I went to the windmill, and I saw back there, just on a glance, I was like, oh, a lever, pull. And what that lever did was actually speed up the windmill.
Oh, no.
So, maybe he was flung into space, and according to the wiki, he will never be seen again. So that is my fault.
Oh my god, did they actually say that?
If you do not stop the windmill, he does not return.
Oh my god.
So, thinking is important in everything, really, but I that's not what I'm here for.
Yeah, there are definitely thinking games that I think are fine for engaging with chat with. Like, I would say, like, the original Portal. That's a 2-hour long puzzle shooter.
Oh yeah. That was great.
Yeah, I go back to it like once every year. It's so good.
I
But
should too.
I would
Yeah.
say Baldur's Gate 3, it's like you're constantly on your feet with that.
Yeah, but at the same time, it is nice to see, chat does have a good time being able to, I call it, energy vampire, not energy vampire, emotional vampiring, where they're like, oh yeah, this scene, like, completely ruined my life, and it made me very sad for a day. You should go watch it. Like, okay, I guess I'll go interact with this character that wants to kill me, okay.
Yeah, I feel like I definitely see that a lot in the furry space where it's just like, damn, I was so fucking depressed after this. Anyways, you should
I
go and see it.
the game that I play most often, or that I started streaming with, was Final Fantasy 14. So everyone in my chat who had already, played through most of the game, they're like, "Oh boy, he's almost to the scene," and I'm like, "What scene? What are you talking about?" And they're like, "Shh, don't worry about it."
Oh my
Okay,
god.
all right. And of course, the scene breaks my heart into a million pieces, and I start crying on stream. And they're like, "Yay!" Like, what kind of sadists?
Yeah, I haven't played 14 in a while, and I don't think I have that expansion, but I feel like I know what scene you're talking about. Just
I mean,
'cause
there's a lot.
there's like this one specific scene that I hear like everyone talk about when Final Fantasy 14 is brought up. I think it's Endwalker. I don't remember.
Everything in Endwalker is heartbreaking. A very good expansion, very good story. Maybe someday I'll write a story like that.
Oh yeah, like before I did Silverstone, I wanted to make like an actual JRPG, and I was definitely like, I have to put some like heart-wrenching scenes in this.
You really gotta twist the knife. If you want people these days to feel anything, you gotta gut them.
Yeah, 100%. Maybe one day I'll revisit that. I've never officially said it's canceled, but with Silverstone, of course, it's on hiatus. I have to put
So yeah, takes all your time.
all my emotional energy into that.
There were definitely scenes in Undefeated that, like, as I'm writing them, I'm like, I'm really gonna ham this up. I gotta kill the readers.
Yeah.
And then, like, I send it off to the proofreaders, and like 45 minutes they message me back. They're like, "You motherfucker!" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yay, it worked!"
I was talking with my artist about a character from Silverstone, and I revealed to them something that happens later down. I think it's going to happen in Build 5, I'm not sure. And they literally just were like, what? What? And I was like, damn.
It's always fun to like message my artist out of the blue, where I'm like, "Hey, for this climactic scene, can you draw this, this, and that?" And they're like, "Yeah, what the fuck is happening?" I'm like, "Don't worry about it."
It's like, you gotta create some emotional damage down the line.
Here's $200. Break people's hearts, please. Thank you.
Yeah. But like when Undefeated ended, I was in a book club, and Undefeated was what we chose for that. And one thing it definitely made me realize is that a lot of people, when they read visual novels, is they want the protagonists to be either like really good or really bad. And you have a very flawed character with Xander.
Yeah, he's a real piece of shit.
Yeah. A lot of people were very, I don't want to say they didn't like it, I want to say they were more confused by it almost.
I think a lot of people didn't like him at the start, and that was a little bit of the intention. Because I wanted him to be a piece of shit. The problem was I didn't know how to keep people on the hook.
Oh.
Because there's been a few novels where I've read where the main character is just a real stinker at the start of it, and I'm like, man, this guy sucks. I don't wanna like root for this guy. But like they get better, obviously, as the story goes on. So
Yeah.
it is definitely a very difficult line to draw when writing characters who are supposed to be assholes, but you're supposed to root for them.
Yeah.
And I feel like I accomplished that a little bit, but at the same time, I did have to throw in little bits and pieces here and there, like little breadcrumbs, just to be like, no, he's good, I promise, he's figuring it out. He's got some issues, but he's working on it.
Yeah, and I think a very unfortunate part of the process of that as well is you're putting out build after build, and if you don't outline your story well enough, you can easily like fuck up that sort of character building in that way.
100%. You really have to. I mean, planning is. I'm the kind of guy that likes to plan every single thing in advance. Obviously, with a story like this, you really just need the basic bullet points of everything. But and then you fill in the rest as you start to write the actual thing. But like with these characters who are slowly growing over the course of in real life 2 years, but in game just a few months. You really have to like not lace. That's not the right word. You really have to like lay it. What's the word I'm looking for? You
maybe
really have
spread.
to spread it. Yeah, you have to spread it out. You have to spread it out very evenly. You have to, because if it happens too fast, then it doesn't feel satisfying, and if it happens too slow, then people are gonna lose interest. They're not gonna want to
Yeah.
wait for it. If it's too sudden, then it's just not as interesting. So having that casual ramp up, where once you get to the end of the novel, you can look at the character, you can look at Xander and be like, oh, he's not a piece of shit, and then you can go back to the start and realize, oh wow, he was a total piece of shit back here, and just seeing that slow, gradual improvement of the character. It's difficult to do, and I definitely fucked up in some parts, but I'm pretty satisfied with how it turned out with him.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I don't really like perfect characters all that much because if your character is perfect, it doesn't really feel like the story actually goes anywhere because it feels like your character is never going to encounter a problem in that way.
Yeah. I was reading I was talking to someone about writing advice the other day, and I was actually looked up are you familiar with the author Brandon Sanderson?
Yeah, he does Wheel of Time, right?
Yeah. I've never read any of his work, but a lot of my friends have, and they all have very good things to say about him. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I trust that. But one of his, he had like a bunch of like pieces of writing advice, and one of the things that he was writing about was creating like flaws in your characters. So, if, as an example, he gave like Superman, and when you think of Superman, what do you think? He's invincible. He can shoot lasers. He's like, he's super strong. He's super fast. You know, he's all these really cool and powerful things, and that's nice, but that's kind of boring.
Yeah,
But when you think about his weaknesses, he has weaknesses. He has kryptonite,
yeah,
and he has his code of ethics, right? He has a very strict like sense of morals, sense of morality, and that's what makes him interesting, you know. And so he summarized all that by saying like the thing that is interesting about Superman isn't his strengths, it's his weaknesses. And
yeah.
so I think giving characters flaws is a very very important part of crafting these worlds, crafting interesting characters. You have to make them human in a sense. Obviously, we're furries, but
Yeah, bouncing off of Superman, it's like a great example of that is Zack Snyder's Superman versus James Gunn's. And I think they're both very interesting takes on the character. But if you look at Zack Snyder's version, his definitely follows the more almost Jesus-like sort of version that a lot of people picture. There are moments where the whole flaws start to come in, like in I believe it's Man of Steel when he kills someone. That is a very interesting thing to show for Superman, but it kind of gets hampered because he doesn't really have any other flaws in that universe. I think that's also why Batman v Superman wasn't as critically acclaimed, because it takes a fantastic storyline, which is Batman's morals versus Superman's morals, and it doesn't really kind of create a combative sort of way of doing that in that universe. But if you look at James Gunn's Superman, his is almost more man than super, which creates this relatability. And it brings back like all of these moments we remember from like the 40s and 60s Superman.
he's a much more relatable, person. Because I mean, yeah, like I don't know much about Superman if I'm being 100% honest, but he was raised like on Earth. He was raised sort of in a human sense to live among humans, you know.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that he would be more of a man than a super.
Yeah, and what's very interesting is you can also take Superman's morals and apply them to more villainous protagonists, like, say, Dexter, if you know Dexter.
The serial killer?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, his code of ethics is basically he needs to have evidence that this serial killer has done this thing, and he can only kill bad people.
Mm.
So that's almost a sort of mirror of Superman's morals in a way. And I think that's very interesting. But nowadays, it's almost like we can't have great protagonists. We have to have black or white.
Yes. I mean, I'm not agreeing with you. I'm not agreeing with that sentiment. I'm agreeing with you saying that.
Yeah, I get what you mean there.
It's a difficult line to have to cross. Because you need the restriction that the character has. You know, like what like
Yeah.
you were saying with Dexter, he only does it on he only does it when he has these two things filled, you know?
Mhm.
A piece of writing advice that I read forever ago on Tumblr was like, I don't remember who it was, my apologies, but they said something akin to like your character has has, a set of wants, they have a set of needs, and then they have like one need that, as a rule, they are not allowed to say. They are
Yeah.
not allowed to say what they need, because they're too embarrassed, they're too guilty, they're too upset about it, in one way or the other. So with my characters, I tried to follow that rule. If you look at like Redline, he has a lot of needs that are not being met,
Yeah.
but he is too, he's too ashamed of himself. He's too afraid to actually say them. And so over the course of the novel, he's like trying to, get that space to like grow.
Yeah.
I'm phrasing it very poorly, but I hope it makes sense.
Oh, I 100% get what you mean. And I think that's also one of the reasons why Redline is my favorite character in Undefeated, is because it's a very human character in that way. Even though he's a hyena, obviously. But it's like Redline is someone that you can easily meet. It could be yourself, even, in that sort of way.
I really tried to, with Redline especially, I put a lot of, I don't want to get too much of a Debbie Downer or anything here, but like I try to put a lot of my own like fears and insecurities into that little weasel of a man. So I really wanted to just be like as genuine as possible with him, because I feel like that's where a lot of the best, at least for me, a lot of my best writing comes from, is when I'm coming from a place of just being open, just like cutting myself open and letting whatever I am spill out onto, I can't say the page because I'm not working with paper, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just being able to have a character who is so afraid of letting that slip, of letting everything slip out. I think that helps make it a little bit more satisfying at the end when he finally does just like break down, and then you get to see everything.
Yeah, I 100%. And then we've mentioned Xander and Redline, so now of course we have to talk about Bruce, who he was pretty much seen as the antagonist for a lot of the book club.
Yeah,
But
he's an asshole.
yeah, Bruce is extremely interesting because he's framed as an antagonist, even though he's not the true antagonist whatsoever. And he grows a lot after the main antagonist flips to becoming Fang.
He's like a little bit more difficult to categorize, at least in terms of like where he's at in his point at this point in his life, because Xander he's young and he's dumb. And he's figuring everything out emotionally. He had a very sheltered upbringing. Compared to Bruce, who has had just everything happen to him. And he's already at a point where he knows what's going on is morally wrong, and he's trying to like fix it, but he's also too proud to, actually fix it.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult thing, but he's also, they're all trying to like, I don't want to gamify it too much, but they're all trying to like get to the next level or the next stage of their emotional maturity. And he's already way far beyond Xander and Redline, but he's not allowed to, act as like a mentor, or he's not allowed to act on his morality. So he just kind of has to sit and stew in the dirt,
Yeah, and I find that very interesting because I feel like Bruce, his situation is something so many people nowadays can agree with, which is being stuck in this system and wanting to fix things, but you don't really have the power to, so you're just kind of stuck.
He knows what's going on is wrong, and he doesn't have any way to fix it, or he doesn't have the ability or capacity necessarily to fix it.
Yeah.
So he's doing his best to lighten the load, like if I have people that I'm managing or something, and something comes down from the higher ups and it's going to make their lives worse, I can't necessarily fix it. I mean, I can, but that would put everybody's jobs at risk. So, and I don't want to do that to them. So, you kind of just have to make the best of what you do. And it's difficult for Xander to see that, obviously, because he's blinded by rage and young adult angst.
Yeah.
But I really had a lot of fun writing Bruce, especially. It was difficult, at least conceptually at the start, because when I like finalized these characters in my head, I was like, I had them finalized as who they are at the end of the novel, where they're fine, they're getting along, they're emotionally mature, and they're very understanding people. But now I have to do the very painful part of taking these three beloved babies of mine and rewinding them into a point where they're all miserable and anxious and just exhausted. And it was really hard at the start to be like, yeah, unfortunately, I have to write Xander being a total dick to everyone. This sucks. It hurt.
Yeah, it's very hard finding the line between growth and the status quo, because you do do definitely want to keep what has happened inside that character, but there are times where you have to return them to their predicament. And
Yeah.
when you do that, sometimes you kind of default back to taking them where they were at the start.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. I don't like seeing these guys hurt. I mean, I do kind of. That's why I sorry, let me try that again. I don't like seeing these guys hurt, says the guy who tortured 3 characters for other people's amusement.
Hurting characters, your own characters at least, is very interesting as well. It's very cathartic in a way, almost. But at the same time, it's like, oh my god, these are my children.
This Undefeated was the longest and most expensive therapy session I have ever received.
Oh
But
my god.
it works. There is something very satisfying. I think. Oh god, was it chapter 3? I think where Xander has his big fucking baby panic attack. I shouldn't say baby panic attack because it was a very human panic attack. I think.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but
believe it was chapter 3, yeah.
that sounds about right. I remember when I wrote that, I was like, I accidentally gave myself a panic attack because I was trying to get into the headspace of it.
Oh
So
no.
after I finished that scene, I was like, I just like shut my computer off and I went and lay down in bed for like 6 hours.
Oh no.
But it really is satisfying. It's gratifying to be able to write something out and just like have I think the response from audience typically I try not to focus on audience response too much just because then I'll get too focused on it. But I think there was a scene at some point where I wrote it and I handed it to a proofreader and he was like, I just want to let you know this exact thing has happened to me and no one has ever understood me on it, so thank you for writing this. And I started crying, man, because it was like, I don't know, it feels really good to be seen and to see other people with certain emotions, with certain situations.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely something writers need to realize is you've made it when you can make someone feel that way. Even if you feel like the rest of your work isn't that good, the fact you're able to do that just shows you have a great ability as a writer.
One of the goals of Undefeated, at least from like an emotional standpoint, was to be able to express myself, to be able to not just like in an artistic way, but also from an emotional way. There's a lot of feelings and thoughts and emotions that I really have trouble expressing. I sometimes, not sometimes, I would say a lot of the time, am bad with my words in explaining how I feel. And writing this was sort of a way of me hoping just to put out there, like, I hope somebody sees this. I hope somebody can see these characters and resonate with them and feel the way that they feel. And being able to see people come back and enjoy, Redline and Xander in these ways is just it fills my heart. It feels really good.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of devs want to do is there are these characters, they want to share their emotions with the world. And I think that is what brings us all together in a way. It's like we're all just creating one large therapy session, but but it's one that so many people can relate to. And
Absolutely.
that is something I think we all should be proud of.
I love being able to read a build that somebody just put out and get through a very, heartfelt, emotional scene.
Mhm.
And like going back to the dev and just thinking like, man, I just want to give you a hug. I just want to like, I don't know how much of that is based off of personal experience. I don't know how much of that has been stewing in your heart for God knows how long, but like, come on, like just bring it here.
Yeah, there's definitely times I felt that as well.
Mm.
There's one, I can't say what it is, but there was one scene in Remember the Flowers where I was tearing up while reading it because it was so well written. And I was like, Jericho, are you okay, buddy?
It shows, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the quality of the writing. You don't have to do all this big fancy purple prose here and there. I mean, I don't read like fancy prose because I have the brain the size of a walnut, but like you can tell when someone is writing from the heart. You can tell when someone is just opening themselves up and being completely genuine. And I think a lot of people appreciate that, even if they don't know they appreciate it. They will be able to see, like, the layman who doesn't have like a good eye for analysis or something like that. They'll be able to tell when they like something better, and it's usually because it's a story told from the heart. It's a story told by someone that gives a shit about what they're working on.
Yeah, one example I can think of something like that is Erebus Wolf's One More Light. Fate, which throughout it we play as a character who experiences a lot of suicidal ideation. And it's so realistic that it's just impressive from a writing stance and also very concerning.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah.
For sure.
But on the topic of feelings, one thing we don't really see in furry visual novels, which I'm somewhat surprised with, but at the same time sort of get, is polyamorous romances. And Undefeated ends with that.
Yes,
With
my band-aid solution
yeah.
to the roots problem we discussed an hour ago.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I was gonna bring this topic up later. I'm pretty sure that's the answer to it now.
I mean, it was at the time of like making it, I was like, ah, that feels just like I'm patching it together. I'll like maybe I'll fix that later, like as I'm working on it or something. But like coming through it and like writing through all of the bullet points, by the time that I got to where that happened, it just like it felt like the right thing to do. It didn't feel fair after all the bullshit that I put these guys through. I'm like, they all need a happy ending at this point.
Yeah.
So it just felt right. It felt fair. And I'm actually really happy with how it turned out. I didn't think that polyamory was necessarily such a rarity in this sort of space.
In the furry space in general, I think there's a lot of art depicting polyamorous romances, but I think the only other scene or other visual novel where I've seen sort of a poly romance, I think it falls apart, I haven't read it in so long, was The Smoke Room, Cliff's Route.
Oh, I have not read Cliff's Route, so that might be why I was unaware of it.
Yeah. I'm not gonna say who the other person was then, but three characters, Sam, Cliff, and another one, they sort of start a poly romance, and that's the only other one I can think of. There's probably other visual novels that have it, and I just haven't seen them yet.
I'm sure there is somewhere out there. I feel like it might be a difficult thing to do, not just from like a programming aspect, but also from a storytelling thing. Because if we're writing roots, typically the roots are done with one other person.
Yeah.
And so the story is like focused around that. Again, I haven't read Cliff, so I don't know how that story goes necessarily. But you might be able to introduce another character. But then, if let's say I'm reading Echo, and in an alternate universe where Echo has poly romances, and I'm like, okay, I want to go on the Leo route because I want to date Leo. And also Flynn's here. Like, okay, I didn't ask for Flynn to also be here, but
Yeah.
okay, so it's probably difficult to introduce that as a concept in a dating sim sense
100%.
without revealing it right out. I think if we can roll back to Morenatsu for a second, I think Sotaro and Kyoji were supposed to be a polyamorous route.
Oh.
The dog and the lion, because I think they were like implied to be dating, or at least like an item at the start of it. So you would go down, you would like hang out with them separately, and then at the end you would get together or something like that. But their route never even got started, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
We'll never really know.
Yeah. I wonder how they would have handled that actually. But
Adding a third person to the equation definitely can also open up more storylines, more conflict. Not necessarily in a relationship sense, but like the more people involved, the more you can do with a conflict.
Yeah.
That's not a hard and fast rule. I don't know what I'm talking about. Don't start throwing a bunch of people in.
I feel like none of us know what we're talking about, but we're just here and being.
Oh, I don't know a single goddamn thing. I've had people who were like, "You're a writer." I'm like, "Well, I wrote a thing. I don't know if I'd call myself a writer. I can't give advice."
Weirdly, the thing that people came to me about with Silverstone was, "Oh, Brick knows what they're doing with marketing. You should go to them." And I'm like, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing.
Oh no.
I don't know how I got popular. Don't ask me.
That's always the worst feeling of like, oh god, now somebody's putting their trust in me. Oh no.
Yeah, and that was before it even came out too, which was even more dreadful.
Oh no.
But yeah, like I imagine something like Leo, Kudzu, and Chase, that would definitely not work because Leo and Kudzu, they're literally polar opposites. They're meant to combat each other. But
yeah, Leo needs a canonical route with like a therapist.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah. Hey, Howley, we should get on that.
We'll get on that. Hey, Howley,
Yeah.
you got my number?
But like Undefeated, I think having it be a polyamorous relationship was the right way to go. Like I definitely know there's people who only want Redline and only want Bruce, but I don't think it would have worked if one character was just pushed to the side.
There were so I do get questions on itch every now and then that are like, so when's the Bruce route coming? And I'm like, did you read? I don't know what to tell you, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was on the itch page earlier today and someone was like, so is this going to be continued? I'm like,
no,
it's finished.
No, it's finished. You'll be lucky if you get an epilogue. I mean, I already gave you an epilogue, but you'll be lucky if no.
The epilogue
when it came out, I thought like, oh, maybe I'll add some side content. And a year has passed, and I think I've opened Renpai twice to fix like spelling mistakes.
Yeah.
I was but I feel like having roots would kind of fragment it a little bit. At one point I think if you were on Bruce's route, then some bad stuff would happen. And if you were on Redline's route, some other bad stuff would happen. And I didn't want that to really happen either. I think at the time I was like, well, not everyone's gonna like Redline and not everyone's gonna like Bruce, so maybe I'll like put this in here and there so people can pick and choose. And then I thought, no, I know the story that I want to tell. I know how I want this to go, and I'm not gonna let fictional version of other people inside my head tell me what I should be doing.
Yeah, that's definitely something that's been hard to deal with comment-wise, is people going, oh, you should do this, it would make it better. And in Silverstone's case, that is having sex scenes.
God,
Which,
don't get me started on the... Sorry, please continue.
Yeah, we're both people who our visual novels are labeled NSFW, but we don't have any sex scenes. And it's because our stories don't need sex scenes. Like, there's going to be a scene in Silverstone later on down the line that does address some of that stuff. But
oh yeah, there's a CG in Undefeated. There's two of them actually in one build where they're both very spicy, but like nothing outright. But I remember at the start I labeled it as not safe for work, and I had people asking like, oh, like is there going to be sex scenes? And I had to say like, no, there's no sexual content planned. And I actually had some guy DM me, and he was like, he goes, you're making a huge mistake not putting sex scenes in. And I'm like, what do you, what? A mistake?
DM is so far, jeez.
It's so wild. I'm like, what do you mean I'm making, are you threatening me? What's going on here?
I thankfully have not dealt with that yet.
The first two builds of Undefeated did not go over super hot. Which is understandable. They're both very slow, and they were both written like a year before the rest of it came out. So in a perfect world, I would have gone back and revised those two builds. But I can understand why they didn't do super hot. And then once the third one came out, that's when it started picking up steam. And I'm very, very grateful for that. But just those first two builds, people were like, so why isn't there sex? Why is it labeled as not safe for work if you're not going to have sex? I'm bad at writing sex scenes. Leave me alone. Yeah. I'm like cowering in the corner, like, please don't make me write a sex scene.
I feel like a lot of people would immediately label us prudes just for not having sex scenes, but that's not how we feel at all.
No, I love a good sex. I love a good fuck. You know,
I love a good sex. Give me sex.
I love a good guy who knows what sex is. Loves a good sex.
It's just like, we do hear what you want. It's just not the direction we're planning to go.
Exactly. And at the same time, obviously, I'm not like dunking on anything with sex. I read The Smoke Room. I read Killigan's Treasure. Those are plenty of sex scenes. Those are very horny visual novels. I love sex.
I read Chopro. That has sex scenes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've read Chopro. That does have sex scenes. But like, it's just I don't need it.
Yeah.
And I don't think every story necessarily needs it, and that's fine. If you want to include it, do it, and if you don't want to include it, do it. It doesn't even need to have to help the plot.
Yeah, 100%. Like,
people can just be horny.
And if you are disappointed we don't have sex scenes, that's also fine. There's a lot of furry visual novels out there. You can go and read something else, and we are sorry that we don't have sex scenes, but at the same time, we're not going in that direction. So
I'm not sorry I don't have sex scenes.
Yeah, we're sorry, but we're not sorry.
Yeah, fuck those hornballs. Also, if you want a sex scene between characters, you could commission it if you want.
Yeah, that's...
You could draw it, you could write it out, you could write out a fan fiction. My job is done. When I put out that build, I dusted my hands off. I said, oh boy, I'm done.
Yeah, like, trust us. Like, if you write our characters in a sexual scenario, we're going to be like, fucking love that shit.
I read every comment. I read every comment, every horny thing people have to say about Bruce, and I'm like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I made him specifically when I introduced the commissioner. People were like, whoa, he's kind of hot. Uh-oh. And I'm like, yeah, I did that on purpose. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Now you can have this moral dilemma.
It's very funny in my case because for me, everyone is lusting after the straight brother.
Oh no.
I'm like, okay, glad you find him hot. You're just gonna have to write that thing yourself. And I guess we'll move on to the final topic, which I think you answered a lot already, but what if you made Undefeated today, what would you have done differently?
Oh boy.
Go alongside there.
Man, I'm trying to think. Okay, firstly, I would have gone back and rewritten chapter 1 and 2.
Mhm.
I don't think I would have changed any of the major plot beats, but there's stuff in there that I would have taken out. There's stuff that I put in there that I was like, this will come up later, and then it didn't. And I'm like a little bit mad that I included it in the first place. I wrote chapters 1 and 2 in March of 2021, and I didn't start
Mm.
writing chapter 3 until June of 2022. So there was
Oh.
well over a year between the writing of those chapters. And I feel like
Yeah.
I changed a lot in how I wanted to portray the story. So I definitely would have gone back and redone a bit of that, but I am a lazy person. I also probably would have taken a few more cracks at the world building. I think world building is by far my weakest trait as a writer. There's a lot that goes unanswered in Undefeated that people have asked me questions to, and I just have to say, oh,
Yeah.
you write a fan fiction about that for yourself.
Yeah, that was one of the main criticisms I saw was the world building. But
I completely understand that. And that is something where like in future projects, I'm just gonna like collaborate with someone else that has a much better grasp on world building and I'll do the stuff I'm good at and they can do the stuff they're good at. I feel like I should have had a clearer goal for things starting out because I did have an outline. You know, I have a big multi-page outline that's like here's all the story beats, here's where we're gonna check in with these characters, etc. But I still didn't have like the perfect plan for everything. I didn't get everything wrapped up as neatly as I would have wanted. For example, there's like a lot of menu options in Undefeated. There's like choices that Xander can make that don't matter. And I think that kind of confused or upset some people because
yeah.
typically in a visual novel, when you make a choice, you want it to have some sort of significant impact. And up until that one choice in chapter 5, where you can continue the story or end the game immediately, none of the choices have any impact on the story. And I think a lot of people were expecting them to impact the story. And I feel kind of bad because it feels, even though I didn't do it intentionally, it feels like I lied to people. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to betray the reader's trust. And I don't want to like make them uncomfortable or upset with something like that. So moving forward, I think I just didn't know what I wanted at the start. And I had a better idea of it moving forward, but I would have liked to do a lot more planning for the structure of the novel, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I get you for sure there. I think having choices that don't impact the story is fine as long as it builds upon stuff you've already introduced. But
Yeah.
with those, you definitely do need to put in some important choices in there.
Yeah, if you're going to include choices at all. And at the same time, I wonder, I don't know how the general audience feels about like novels without choice. I mean, I guess Adastra is one of, if not the biggest visual novel, and I don't think that has any choices up until like one near the end, question mark? I didn't finish
Yeah,
those.
I think that's mostly just linear and you're along for the
Yeah,
ride.
which you know, it is a novel, so choices like
Yeah.
when I'm reading a regular novel, I don't make any choices.
Yeah, but if it's like something like tennis ace, for example, there the choices 100% matter.
I would have liked to plan more, which is probably why anything I do in the future is gonna take a lot longer just to get started up.
Yeah, and I think that is 100% the correct move because I'm not saying pantsing it is a bad thing to do because some of the greatest authors of all time, they just start writing and that's what happens. But I find having an outline at least is the best thing you can do for a visual novel that you'll be developing for
Absolutely.
years.
Any story, oh, especially if you're going to be working on it for a long period of time,
Mm.
being able having that outline sitting next to me, like after I put out a build or something, I go back to that outline and I cross those off. Oh, that felt so good.
Yeah.
Oh, that feels so good just to be like, I've accomplished a thing. I'm still only 1/3 of the way through, but look at how much I've done so far, you know?
That scene is done. I have accomplished something.
I've done something important, maybe. Well, in the grand scheme of things, maybe not, but you know. Yeah, if anyone listening is like considering working on something like this, firstly, do it. It's awesome. It's
Oh
so
yeah.
satisfying. Even just writing, you know, writing is great. Writing is therapeutic. At times. There's other scenes where I'm like, this shit sucks and I need to move on. I gotta get out of here. But
Flashback to the panic attack.
well, no, not even that. That one was therapeutic to write, but also made me have a visceral, physical reaction that I didn't ever have working on anything else in the novel. So I don't know what the hell that was. But like, it's more like transitionary scenes where characters are just kind of like,
Oh.
we finished doing a thing and now we have to mull about a little bit until we get to the next part of the story, until we get to the next major story beat. And I'm like, man, I don't know. I'm just writing things down and I can fix it later. I'll go back
Yeah.
and because you can't polish something up until it's actually made, you know. So
Yeah, I get that a lot as well. As transitionary scenes are just, I want to get to the next big thing.
I want to describe things. I want to write. I want to write dialogue. I want to write actions. You know, I'm the impatient kid at the amusement park. I don't want to wait in line.
It's especially bad if you have like a specific scene you're wanting to write, but
Dude,
yeah, there's just still so much you have to do.
that scene with Redline and Xander at the beach in like chapter 7 or
Ooh,
something.
yeah.
I had that scene in my brain since I conceptualized those two characters. I was like, I need these two to interact in this very specific way, and I need it now. And that was in March of 2021. So finally sitting down and writing it in like late 2023 was just so I think I like went out and bought myself dinner that night. I was just so happy finally being able to do that.
Yeah, there's definitely one scene, Silverstone, that it's in build 4, and I'm like, I just want to get through build 3 so I can write that scene.
And there's some people out there who are like, you should just write that scene anyway and then like connect to it later. But that might be good advice for people whose brains work differently to mine. Mine will very much be like, no, this doesn't make any goddamn sense. It's going to take more work to piece it together than it will be to just get there naturally. So if it works for you, it works for you. You know, you do what you need to do.
Yeah, but it's like some people just can't write non-linearly. Like they have to go on a straight path.
Oh yeah, I think it was Mick Skinny who said like I don't remember when he said this or if he said it at all, but I remember he said like, oh yeah, I just kind of like wrote whatever, like he just like wrote the story as it went along, and I'm like, damn, you made Echo doing that? Shit, man, that's really impressive. How the fuck? I could never.
Give us your powers, McSkinny.
Please, Mick Skinny.
All right. Well, been nice having you on, Leo. I've loved all of your insight. It's been incredibly nice talking to you.
The pleasure was all mine. This was an absolute blast. Thank you so much for joining and for having me on and for like putting this together. Like I'm surprised that we don't have something like this already.
Yeah, there used to be one, but I believe she stopped it. I think she just had too much going on in her life, which is perfectly reasonable. But
You know, the whole world's kind of happening right now.
yeah. But yeah, tell people where they can find you, your projects, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I am on Blue Sky at LeoMyFriend.gay. I also have the domain name LeoMyFriend.gay. I haven't updated it in a few years, but I'm working on that. I think right now pretty much everything I'm doing is at least creative efforts wise is I stream on Twitch every Monday and Wednesday. Right now I'm going through Baldur's Gate 3, but I'm using that as an excuse to work through my backlog. I have a backlog of like 40 games that I told myself I would play, and then I started writing a stupid visual novel for 3 years, so that never really panned out. That's, you know what? Big blunder on my part. Oh, and the visual novel. I also have a Blue Sky for the visual novel. I don't really have any updates there, but undefeatedvn.itch.io is where you can download my visual novel, Undefeated. If you want to read 3 sad boys fight each other, that's where you can get that. I'm also on Blue Sky on that account as well.
Hell yeah. Well, that is the end of episode 2 of the Route Select podcast, or Route Select. I don't know what I said in the beginning.
Route Select.
All right, we'll go with that. Next episode, we're going to take a bit of a different path. We're going to go away from slice of life and sports and head into a cyberpunk world. We are going to have Faintly Spotted, the developer of Under Heaven. Have a good day, and I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.
Bye.